Welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream. My friends, I have Kathleen Hoffman back. She is the pastor of the Onset Spiritualist Church. And we're having a great time. And today we're going to get more into the nitty-gritty of messages and spirit world and how they come to you and how interesting the stories must be.
Yes.
So, on that note,
Okay.
How long have you been up to this?
Oh gosh. Well, I guess ever since I was born. If you really put your knowing if you end up doing this,
it was tapping you on the shoulder.
Yeah, it was tapping
all along.
As a very young girl, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. So,
and life's scary when you're so sensitive and so psychic.
Oh, it is. And what the marvelous thing about it is what I've learned.
Yeah.
Under our deepest, saddest times, Spirit will, if we don't ask, they'll even come in for us to uplift us and give us hope and comfort, you know.
Yes,
And we could talk about those times. And I know there's a lot of people that are going through immense difficulties right now in their lives, and it seems I'm hearing from a lot of people like, what's going on? I'm feeling emotional. I'm feeling scattered. I have short-term memory, and I feel like I'm famished. I can't stop eating. I don't want to eat at all. Or all these things and these are all ascension things that we're going through, that our body is getting ready for the ascension into the fifth dimension, which are in the Mayan calendar we talk about December 2012.
Okay.
It's, these are some of the signs, and if you on Facebook, or it's posted probably on the internet. So, but I'd like to just share, during times in my own life, I haven't had the easiest road like most of us. But it's given me the gifts I have today, and it's helped me to be who I am today. So if we all look at it that way, know that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And one of the most, I remember like at least 3 incidents in my life that were so profound. And one of them did happen when I was a very young girl.
Yeah.
I remember being up my father was a carpenter, and they often bought houses, and it was a 3-story Victorian house in Newton, Massachusetts.
Sure.
And I happened to be up way on the top of the peak, and my room was right near the window, and so there was nowhere out but through the window if I wanted to get out, if anybody was scaring me or there was a fire or something. Well, one night I can remember laying there, and all of a sudden I heard my name being called out, Kathleen, and I just froze in my bed, wondering, oh my God.
Who said that?
But the good thing about it is I remember my grandmother Nicolay, who was my spiritual mentor.
Oh, cute name.
She would often call out to Mother Mary, and Mother Mary to help us and so forth, and Jesus and everything. So I thought, do you think it's Mother Mary? Then it helped me to calm down. Yeah, calm down. And I didn't hear it after that, but that was okay. And I was able to.
Was it just once you heard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kathleen. And it was like, did I hear that really? And that's how it can be. In fact, when I tell you these stories, it's almost like, pinch me, is it really true? It really happened, but I knew it happened.
Yeah.
And one time I was going through something that was very difficult for me. And I had come home in that evening, and I just kind of plopped on my bed, just kind of to group and so forth. Yeah. And all of a sudden I started hearing this tune. It was a choir. And I started, wait a minute. This can't be, because there was nobody home. I had just thrown out my stereo, because back in the day they had those wires and everything, and I'm not a lot of electronically suave. So I put it away. I said, I'm going to intend there's a new one coming in. And then at the time they still had the tubes in the TV, and that was being outfixed. So no radio, no TV. So where is this? Then I said, okay, it must be outside. But it was right in the room. So I said, geez, where I live, there's a sanctuary behind me that's a herring run. And nobody was on either side of my home. It's all woods. And my neighbor was in a distance far in the front of my house. So I'm thinking, oh my God. But once I got over all that, I said, wait a minute. I love this song. I know this song. And then it was very faint, enough for me to kind of stretch my hearing but not get the tune. Well, I ended up falling asleep. The next day I'm in church. We all rise for the hymn, and it was the exact song.
Oh my goodness.
And it was my favorite song in the hymnal, and it was "Count Your Blessings, count them one by one. So in
Oh.
other words, look at your life. Look at all the wonderful things that we have in our lives. I was going through a hard time. Yes, that was uncomfortable, but be thankful for all the things that you do have. And that's Spirit's message.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
beautiful.
that was beautiful to me.
Yeah. Sometimes we think the grass is greener. I can be
Yes.
very guilty of, look what they have.
Yes.
And yet, look what I have. I mean, we need to always remember we have everything within us.
We have everything within us, and we're always provided for. And remember, we're co-creators too.
That's right.
And just to trust, under the most hardest times, Spirit's come to me and shown me the way.
Yeah.
And, another time, I was just talking about the sanctuary that I have behind my house. And I can go walk out there and be in the wilderness with the birds and the beautiful sun and the herring run, and it's gorgeous. And I'm so grateful for that. And I don't often use it, which is terrible. I got to use a little bit more. And Spirit tries to get me to do that. Well, one day I was so traught. I had a teenager still. Oh. And I was trying to reach out to him and try to help him, how we do as parents.
I know.
And I was crying because it just wasn't working between us. And so his father had passed away when he was 16 years old. So what I did was I was out. That's not what we were fighting or anything about or anything like that. It wasn't actually a fight. It was like I'm trying to shake him into look at, you got a big life ahead of you. You're going to do all these things.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I'm crying like the Dickens, walking out back, hoping nobody will see me. And I'm just wimping away. And I said, I just said out loud to Benjamin's dad, well, I shouldn't say his name, but anyway, we'll just call him that name.
Okay.
And I called out and I said, please, can you help us? Can you help with Benjamin,
Yeah.
And I just put it out there and say, please, I know you're in the spirit world. I know you can help there. So I walk along and there's like a little bridge where the herring run went under.
Yeah.
So I stood on it. And there was a branch that came down like this, a tree sitting on the side here. Standing on the side there. And the branch came down close to me. And all of a sudden, there was a little finch. And the finch started to chirp like mad. Came all the way down to the end of the branch, right next to me. I'm thinking, that's strange in itself. Usually birds take off when you're around it.
Yeah.
So I thought, this is quite strange. And then I thought to myself, could that be Benny? It was Benjamin's dad trying to communicate that it was him and he's going to help me? Because Spirit can use animals and all that.
Well, now that's a good point.
Yes. So then I question it still, because even as a medium you can question. So I walk back up and I go into my home, and upstairs I have the back of my slider faces the herring run, and I have a little deck, a little porch, and the slider was open, and I went upstairs and I started feeling good. Like anytime you get outside and get the air, you start feeling a little bit better.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I'm getting called from this big blue jay.
And they're noisy.
Yes.
They're big talkers.
But it wasn't on the rail of my porch. It wasn't anything like that. It was right next to my slider, which was very unusual. Almost like he was calling me come here, come Heather. So I said, oh my God, what is going on here? I think I'm losing it. So I come up to the slider and I look out, and there is the finch that I saw.
Yeah.
Not on top of the rail, not on the floor of the deck here, but right in the middle, not flying, almost emanated in the corner.
My
And
goodness.
to me, that was a sign. I said, oh, thank you, Spirit. Thank you for your help.
Beautiful.
Thank you for your sign. And, we tell people things like that nowadays. They're going to say, yep, she's ready. She's ready for that.
Yep.
But it's true.
It
It's
is.
amazing what they can do. And it helped me so much.
Yeah.
And so that was my, one of the many, along with what happened in the last show we did, where my grandmother showed me that I was in the right place for that spirit flame drawing.
To be open to what you're just saying is, a lot of folks don't want to be. So
Scared.
Yeah, or, that's your reality. Well, I'm looking at it this way. But being open, and as you say, if you do the asking.
Yes.
How can anything, as you say, Spirit could come to you anyway.
Yes.
But it is really smart to be yakking away and say, come on.
Right, and to be aware of the messages and the signs. It could be that you're asking your father for some help and you're driving along and all of a sudden you look up and the license plate in front of you is Dad. Those are signs.
Yeah,
Those are signs.
Absolutely. My dad was with the Allied Van Company, and whenever I'm on the highway and I'm looking for him, they always show up, and I wave and laugh and say, "Oh, okay."
That's
still
wonderful.
checking in.
Yes, and I just had a friend that had passed away, and before she did, her husband passed away, and their granddaughter, who was very much cherished, helped him to pass in the spirit world. And she was from California, nursing in California, and she was here with her son and her husband, young girl. And she left after Dad passed away, and she was driving home, and she called her grandmother and said, "When I was sleeping on the drive, they were driving back to California, but all of a sudden I woke up, Nana, and I looked, and there's this big truck that had Westgate on it," and that was their last name.
No.
Westgate.
Oh God.
And it's amazing.
Fantastic.
And she said, just when I woke up, the truck went by and it was Westgate. And it's so, even that, people could say, oh, coincidence or whatever. But once you establish yourself with communicating with your infinite intelligence, God, and your guides and your loved ones in the spirit world, once you connect and keep on that, your life becomes not the same.
Yeah.
You don't feel alone anymore.
Yeah. You said something in the first show that I really loved about wanting to serve, and that they're still at it, they're still growing and learning, and they can help us.
They can help us.
So what they didn't get maybe the last time, they're still working on it. They had a chance maybe to see in perspective where they were maybe in their growth.
Raymond Moody, who wrote, was a fabulous writer on the Afterlife, and his investigation of people that have passed and came back again, whether they were resuscitated back. In his book, they talk about that, the reflection that we have when we're passed into the spirit world of all from the time we're born all the way up to the moment in time. And when people come back after they passed and came back, all they want to do is be kind and loving and of service. Yeah. That's sort of an awakening. Yeah. But if we can have this here now. Yeah. Okay, and that's our opportunity.
Yeah. That's a fulfilled life. That's being alive. I like to look at it that way. You're plugged in, you're on fire, you have a purpose. You know what feels good.
Yes.
And we all have this job to do here with a planet that needs help.
Right,
and
exactly.
The sky's the limit on where you can do it or how you can do it. It doesn't matter as long as you're serving and helping.
Right. There's so many people with wonderful talents, but they're alone. They're either stuck in their house, they feel, or something. They don't have the initiative. And it's even if you like to cook, we'll find somebody in your neighborhood that needs some help like that, or join a club. There's so much, and sometimes we just need somebody to know that they care. We need to feel that we're loved and that we're important. Yeah. And everybody is. Yeah. Everybody's important. Nobody would be here if we wouldn't be here unless we were.
Think of all the little careers we've had and we've gone in and out of.
Yes.
And as we get our wisdom, how we keep reinventing ourselves and wrapping it differently and presenting it differently and adding more layers to it or more meaning to it.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful process.
It is a beautiful process. Yeah. It really is.
So it's not over when it looks like it's over.
Yes, it
Reverend Kathleen.
Yes, and it doesn't matter age, race, color, our economical background, nothing matters. Yeah. What really matters is our soul, our source, and how we are towards one another. Because everything is going to be left here. Yeah. When we're gone. Yeah. And everybody has challenges. We're not, to not look at the part of us that we don't like, look at it with love instead of with dislike. Yeah. And just ask for help. Yeah.
Does anyone ever ask when a life is very short, like a child?
Why it happens?
How do we explain things like that? Well, a soul may have a purpose, and it might just be that's okay.
That's exactly it. It's hard. Well, see, that's what made the only sense to me. That possibly that we could have had past lives. Yeah. And that we're coming back for certain reasons, for a plot and a plan for somebody else. So if I'm a baby and I come through and I end up having crib death or whatever it may be, that was for the family. Oftentimes when we lose a loved one in the family, the loss there sometimes can bring the family better together.
That's
Can
a
be
good
a
point.
catalyst.
Yep.
I just had a friend that who's a healer and a teacher, and she lost her niece. She was she was a licensed social worker. She worked for a Department of Social Services, and she had opted to her brother to adopt this young girl.
Oh, really?
And she died at 24 years old. She just dropped dead in front of her brothers and her father for no apparent reason. But through that, my girlfriend told me, she says, it's bringing everybody in the family much closer together.
Yeah.
So it may be for that.
You never know what another soul has elected to do.
Right, and they say we have it opposite. The real world, the real life is in the afterlife.
Yeah.
And here we experience the base emotions, which, yes, there can be joy, but there also can be great sadness and grief and sorrow and so forth.
Yes, there can be. And there's eternal life also within us.
Yes.
But we're so conditioned with fear here that I think patience is hard.
Right.
But I think this chipping away at it and never letting up, eventually I think permanent growth is a slow growth.
It's a
but
slow
it's
growth.
a good growth.
Yes.
It's not a knockout thing where it was too much for you to get too soon.
Right.
And then you fall flat on your face.
Then you fall flat on your face. And
I have done that.
Yes, spirit. I've come in through the back door myself sometimes. When you come through the back door, it's like just plotting the seed without giving it enough time to grow. And it hurts more. It's harder that way.
Oh, yeah.
But when you take the time, slow and steady is the way.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that with development too. They say, oh, how come I'm not getting it now? And it must be the bad teacher, or it must be this, or something like that.
I can't do it.
And it's our own evolution and how one of the famous people that helped me in my entire life was Crystal Moore. She was a medium, and she actually told me that when I went to see her, it was an unusual experience because it was back in the day before I was pastor, and a group of us used to go to find the best psychic and medium, and I heard about her. And so my friend said, well, who are you going to go see? And I said, Crystal Moore. And they, how much does she cost? Oh, $50. And back in the early 80s, that was like a high price. Yeah. And they said, I wouldn't pay that much. But I innately knew, it was a little bit of money, but I needed help. Yeah. So I went to go find this woman's place. And at first, I wasn't much of a traveler at that time, and I had to find her home. And I come in. It was like an office-type setting, and I sat down, and there was a stairway going up there, and people were kind of leaving, and I'm thinking, I'm all here alone, and I'm feeling, oh gosh. Yeah. And so I heard this keys rattling, and the woman looks out from upstairs, and she says, can I help you? And I said, yes, I'm here to see Crystal Moore at 1 o'clock. She looks, she says, just a minute. She goes back, and she comes out, and she says, that's tomorrow. But she said to me, she says, but I need to see you. So I said, okay. So I came up, and my whole life unfolded for me. Her brought up my father who passed into spirit. She also brought up, at the time I was pregnant with my youngest. And at that time my marriage wasn't going so well. Yeah. And so of course I came there to her to tell me if it was going to work out or not, So of course I was very polite about the whole thing, and at the very end I said, well, I almost kind of wanted you to tell me whether my marriage was going to work out or not. She looks at me and she says, you already know that answer. She says, you're extremely psychic. Oh. She says that you already know. And I thought to myself, I do. And then she said, that child, I said, well, but how could I have a child and knowing that the child's not going to have we're going to split up and everything? She goes, well, I want to tell you something. That child to you is going to be even more loving than your other two children, because that child is your father reincarnated through you. Oh, wow. He taught you the lessons that you needed to learn, and now you will teach him. Now, the strange thing about this is that my youngest son looks at me like a father, treats me like a daughter at times, and it's amazing. And he stares at me like an enduring dad would sometimes, Not to say all the other stuff doesn't happen by any means. Yeah. But the most other fascinating thing is that I was 17 when my father passed away to spirit, and he was 41. And my son's my son was 16, and his father was 40. It's so interesting, the parallels there within just a year or so of each other's ages and our father's ages. So when you look at those things, if I had any doubt at the time,
Yeah.
you know. And then at the very last of our meeting together with this meeting, she said to me to pick this Australian card. So I picked out the card, and it was communication. She says, Kathleen, now again, I didn't know I was going to pastor. I was a very shy young woman.
Yeah.
She said to me, she says, you must communicate. She says, you will truly help souls with your communication. So I just, something like that boosted me for the rest of duration. And then, of course, she introduced me to look at Louise Hayes and How to Heal Your Life.
Yes.
So I got into Louise Hayes, and then found, you know, the church, and everything unfolded, and then here I am.
Bingo, you're at the Onset Spiritualist Church in Onset.
In
and as you said, Onset was a spiritualist community.
Yes, definitely.
For years.
Oh, yes. All the homes were full of spiritualists. I mean, back in the day, in the 17th, 18th century, people would meet in their homes and do seances in their homes. And it was channeled through people that had the gift of coming through, where spirit would build a vocal box to speak through. It was channeled through all the wonderful principles of spiritualism. And the philosophy, it's a philosophy, a religion, and a science. And when people really investigate about the teachings, it's all about natural laws, do unto others as yourself. I couldn't find a better way to... And the icing on the cake, it really is only the icing, because our spiritual transformation as an individual is our soul growth is at the most utter importance. And the mediumship and the healing is icing on the cake, I feel. Yes.
Well, everyone has a special talent, and we have 5 minutes, so I'm giving us the cue. Your service on Sunday night is 6:30?
It's 6:30 p.m.
And you go through the regular service, and then you do readings?
Yes.
Is there a little sermon in there?
Oh, yes. When you first come in at 6:30, it's regular prelude, and then we have a reflection and a prelude, and then we go into a meditation and hands-on healing. So we have healers that have been trained.
Oh, yes, of course.
And they just laying of the hands. There's no manipulation, and you feel like $1 million. And then after that, we have the lecture. It could be a visiting lecture. I just try to do once a month on special holidays, and give an opportunity for all the either new students or outside people to come in. And then we have... after the lecture, then we have spirit messages. So that's mediumship. So the person will come in to give a message to those they're drawn to in the And then there's fellowship afterwards. Sometimes people feel like, oh, I can't talk to anybody else that believes in this, so you become friends. And
that's wonderful. But the church is flourishing.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Yes, it is.
A lot of them aren't.
Yes.
So this one is so old, and it's got such deep roots.
Yes, it does.
The truth is there.
Yes, the truth is there.
But get back to reincarnation for just a minute. So a soul can come back.
Yes,
I
believe.
I'd like to believe that. I think that would be quite wonderful.
Well, I'm getting too much. Well, it helps me to live in this world and tolerate the things that go on. They say to look at things neutrally. Don't let, I hardly watch TV. Of course, I want to be vigilant to what I soak in, because, what we see over and over, we can repeat. They suggest that we want to keep ourselves around healthiness and so forth, not to judge others, just to look at it.
Yes.
We're not to judge.
Protect yourself.
Kind of protect yourself and
what
keep
lifts
yourself,
your spirit.
What lifts, and it's amazing. Find out what you love to do and do it. And everything falls into place.
That is true.
Everything falls into place.
Why does that take guts for people to do what they love to do? There's so many shoulds out there.
Well, sometimes we're afraid of what our friends are going to think of us. Or sometimes our friends will go away because they're thinking, oh, look at her fancy pants over there. What does she think she is? Or, it's afraid of how people are going to accept us or not accept us, or whatever we may do, or we may, everybody has a special gift, and we may have the same gifts, but we're going to do it just a little bit different. You could take many fields, and there are no two dancers, there are no two singers. No. Everybody is uniquely. There's room for everybody. There's room for everybody, and it's when I started doing murals. The newspaper came by. I was doing it for this gym, and I was doing all characters around one of the rooms where the kids go in. And he asked me, well, what made you do this, or what got you in is, I said, well, you know, to tell you the truth, I just had to take a step out. I mean, I always drew when I was a little kid and draw faces and things, and I like to do it. And I thought, well, you know what? There's 1,000 people out there that I could say are 10 times better than I am. But you know what? I like to do it. So I'm here doing it.
You're having fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Having fun is a good thing.
It is.
Because it is a scary planet.
Yes.
And I think we lift our vibration, we lift our energy, and of course in our last 2 minutes, laughter is the best medicine in the world. It's interesting how, Louise Hay with her work on affirmations, shifting everything around.
You're listening to her life and how she lifted her. I mean, it's amazing. But there's many stories. You have a story, I have a story, and everybody else does. Yeah. And sometimes sometimes I heard this phrase, you're only sick as the secret you keep. And sometimes people hold so many beautiful stories that they're afraid to bring it out, that people will judge them or whatever it may be. Yeah. But it's when we come out in pureness and we come out in truth. Yeah. You know? Yeah, and we're consistently being ourselves. Yes. And not worrying what somebody's going to think. And be present. And that is not easy in our last minute. No, trust me, I run into that a lot. Yes, myself. Yeah. Well, I look at it this way. There's a mirror out there, and as you show up being who you really are, if the mirror's too bright in somebody's face and it breaks, there may be growing with someone else that's just what's happening. Yes. You're growing and changing and moving on and letting your soul lead you. Yes. And your guidance. In the guidance. Yes. Inner guidance, your inner knowing. And that's our last thing to say. Yes. Just keep asking. And follow your gut feelings. Yes. That's your inner God-given talent, ability to know what's safe and so forth. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my friends, for joining us on Awaken the Dream. I will talk to you again soon.